Welcome learners, I am Vijay Prakash. Today I am going to talk about what is creativity. Everybody wants to succeed and we are in search of what is the secret of this success. If you see the profile of all the successful persons on earth, you will find one thing that is common to all is creativity. Everybody is creative. He is different from others. Today we will discuss what is this creativity, what are the types of creativity, how the creative person behaves, and what are the attributes of or factors of creativity. Creativity is so important that our ex-president Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam was so much concerned about creativity development in society that he used to say that creativity is the key to success in the future, and primary education is where teachers can bring creativity in children at that level. So, let us see what is creativity. Creativity is basically a mental quality to do something new in terms of an idea, process or product. Let us remember, creativity is a mental quality, it is not a physical quantity. It is not related to your physical status, it is not related to your health. It is the mental quality to do something new in terms of an idea, process or product. So, this should be novel, but it should be useful as well. Novelty and usefulness are two major attributes of this creative behavior. Let us see some examples of creativity. C.V. Raman was a great scientist, and why is he remembered as a scientist? Because even among scientists he was creative. He discovered a new property of a scattering of light, and it was so useful that it is named after him, and we always remember this as Raman effect. It is only because of creativity that C.V. Raman rose to that level and he became the first Indian scientist to get Nobel Prize. Let us see another example. You are all teachers or potential teachers. If you go to a class and you teach in a new way, suppose you take up cards. Normally we have chalk and talk method in the class, but you decide to do otherwise. You have group learning sessions and you use cards. Then you are teaching in a new way. This new way of teaching is basically your creativity that is displayed here. So, if you are introducing something new in the class, then you are a creative teacher. We can see it in the picture that is being shown, where teacher is using playing cards to teach the lesson. Let us see another example. It is not that only scientists or leaders or other people are related to creativity. Creativity is everywhere in life, in all walks of life. In the family, a mother has to be creative. If she makes a new recipe of sweets which is liked by all in the family, then she is a creative person. If she arranges the house in a new way which is liked by all, then she is a creative person. So, creativity is everywhere in all walks of life. It can be with a farmer. A farmer grows crops, they go for fishing, they are engaged in so many activities. And if they can design something new, maybe a fish trap, and that fish trap can help them in getting more and more fishes, then the farmer is creative and his innovation should be accepted as a good example of his creative behavior. Let us distinguish between creativity and skill. Let us remember that skill is an ability ability to do well. It comes from one's knowledge, practice, aptitude, etc. And a skill helps you in doing something well. But creativity helps you in doing something new. Carpentry is a skill. A carpenter makes different types of items from wood, but he is not creative. He is creative when he is able to do a new design of furniture which is liked by others. So, doing something different from traditional design is basically expression of creativity. Shiv Khera, who wrote the famous book You Can Win, and he is a great motivator, he always says winners don't do different things, they do things differently. This is important. A creative person has to do things differently, different from others, useful to others. It is new, it is useful, it is different. Let's see why this creativity is important these days. What has happened in the world now? We are growing to be more or less one market, one society. We are all linked to each other. So now, unless you have your full creative potential utilized, you cannot outshine others. Your goods will immediately, even if you have designed a new good, even if you have designed a new computer, a new TV, a new say a robo or drone or whatever it is immediately imitated everywhere, because everybody has reached a level of perfection in technology where it can be easily replicated. So, if you are creative, if you are able to design new and new things, then only you will be able to outshine others, you will be able to corner resources, and then you will be the world leader. If India has to become a world leader, it has to develop its full creative potential. Our problems are getting more and more complex. The population is growing at a very high level. So, the problems are becoming more and more complex. Poverty is a big challenge these days. The old problems need new solutions. Solutions also need new approaches, and these new approaches can come only through creativity. So, we have to develop creativity. And the important part is that creativity can be developed only in early childhood. Let's remember that every child is born creative. You can see the creative behavior of child right from their birth, but they have it in different forms and degree. Creativity is just like temperature. The temperature, everybody has some temperature that is ingrained in their body. I mean, that is the quality of their property of the body. Similarly, every child is creative and it is in different forms and degree. So, and the child is with the teacher, with the school. So, all learning programs must aim at developing this inborn creativity in children. One of the major issues here is, and that is the brighter aspect of creativity, is that creativity can be nurtured and developed. And if it can be nurtured and developed, then there is a possibility that we can work and develop our full creative potential. And the only lesson that we have to remember is creativity has to be developed right from early childhood, or maybe if I say right from the womb. We will have to take care of the child right from the womb, so that their brain and physical body properly develops, so that the creativity in the child is properly groomed and blossomed later. Creativity was so important that our ex-president, the famous teacher in whose memory we remember teachers, we celebrate Teachers' Day every year, he used to say, the end product of education should be a free creative man who can battle against historical circumstances and adversities of nature. It is the free creative man. One should not only be free but also creative. But I say a step ahead. It is creativity that leads to your freedom. If you have to save your freedom, you have to be creative. Now let's see which kind of creativity is there in the people. There are two kinds of creativity that has been identified. One is called verbal, another is called non-verbal. What is verbal? Verbal creativity is basically creativity related to words and its forms. It is related to speaking, reading, writing. It is related to whatever you do with your languages. It is related to whatever you do for your communication. But non-verbal creativity is just opposite. It is what is not verbal is non-verbal. It is related to art, music, science, sports, architecture, and all those things which are not covered under verbal creativity. So let's see a few examples. A poet composes poem. Ramdhari Singh Dinkar was a great poet. He used to compose poem, and he was a creative person. He was verbally creative because he can write poems, he can recite poems in a good way. Let's see another example. Our ex-Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee was a great orator. He used to speak differently, and this difference, speaking differently, makes him a creative person, makes him verbally creative. Let's see one example of his creative speaking.
गीत नहीं गाता हूँ बेनकाब चेहरे हैं दाग बड़े गहरे हैं टूटता तिलस्म आज सच से भय खाता हूँ गीत नहीं गाता हूँ गीत नहीं गाता हूँ.
Let's come to another example of verbal creativity. Doing imitation is not creativity. Although children are also engaged in imitation, imitation is a good thing to do. It's not bad as such because we learn a lot through imitation, but it is not creativity. But when we do imitation with an objective of creating humor, it is creativity. We can see an example of how these people, these stage humor creators do create humor on a stage through their expression of verbal creativity. Let's see the video.
अरे भैया कालिया, आपने बताया नहीं कितने आदमी थे? ओ, वो दो और आप साहब तीन, फिर भी खाली लौटा आए. क्या सोच के आए थे कि मैं बहुत खुश होऊंगा? You return just empty-handed. कमाल करते हैं.
But let's understand that copying from books is not creativity. However good handwriting may be, it is not creativity. Let's see another example of verbal creativity. Singing. Music is an example of non-verbal creativity, but singing is an example of verbal creativity. Lata Mangeshkar is an outstanding singer, and when she sings a new song, she displays her verbal creativity, and that is appreciated by all. But remember, singing a new song is a creative behavior, whereas singing a song sung by others may be good, it's a good skill, but it is not a creative skill. Let's see an example of how Lata Mangeshkar of cricket. MS Dhoni was a captain of Indian cricket team for a long time and was a very successful captain. What he did was, he devised a new type of shot called helicopter shot for hitting six, and on all occasions he displayed that particular type of shot for hitting six, which led to make him different from others. So Dhoni is different maybe because of this particular shot. It's not that Dhoni is not known for other kind of creative behavior, but one example that we can consider is his helicopter shot. Let's see how he plays his helicopter shot.
Oh, the helicopter's out. It's gone miles in the air and way back into the crowd. Out of the park, the helicopter shot. There it is. Oh, the chopper.
Let's see another example. A folk artist draws a painting. Normally, the painting of a folk artist is not very creative behavior, although it may be seen to be creative behavior because every time they draw a new type of painting. But when take this painting to a new base, maybe on the glass or on the wood, then it becomes a new type of painting, and then this is an excellent example of non-verbal creativity. Creativity is also displayed in architecture. Taj Mahal was built 500 years ago, and it's one of the major 7 wonders of the world. So when Taj Mahal was built, it displays the best creative effort in the field of architecture by Indian so-called, I don't know whether they were engineers at that point of time, but whoever were the workers and the artisans who made it, they deserve all commendation because of their creative ability that they had. Let's see what we cannot consider as non-verbal creativity. Copying a painting or drawing for embroidery work. This is a very common practice in villages or elsewhere also, that people copy from a painting or drawing and then they go for either embroidery or applique work or many other things. This copying is not an example of creative behavior. Singing a filmy song is also not an example of creative behavior. Reading books, even on creativity, is not a creative activity. Playing games, normal games, is not an activity, but playing requires a lot of creative behavior, because every time you have new situations, when the teams play, every time they get new problems and they have to seek new solutions. So normally good players are creative people because they come out with solutions in a very tricky situation, and that tricky situations come every moment. When a player plays football or hockey or cricket, every ball that they receive or every time the opponent attacks, they come with a different plan or different game, then they will have to respond in a creative way, in a new way, in a different way. And then only they can succeed. Making a simple building is not an example of creativity. Basically, when it becomes a different building, then only it becomes a creative activity. Now let's see what are the factors affecting creativity. Psychologists studied this and they identified that there are 4 P's which affects creativity. What are those? Process, product, person and place. These are 4 considerations which are important in the case of creativity. Let's see. Graham Wallace had suggested that this is regarding, he studied what are the creative process that is involved in any creative production. He said that there is a preparatory stage, there is an incubation stage, there is an insight stage, and there is a verification stage. These are 4 stages that he studied, and he said that these 4 stages will be there in all creative process. Let's see it in detail. So what is preparatory phase? Preparatory phase is basically preparatory work on a problem when we focus on the problem and explore its dimensions. What are the factors involved in the problem? What are the issues involved? What are the dimensions of the problem? And things like that. This we study. Then we have incubation stage. When you grasp over the problem, then you internalize it, then your thought process goes on it into unconscious mind. And although nothing will appear to be externally happening, but everything is happening inside. So incubation phase, it is just working inside your mind. And then suddenly you come with a light, you come with an insight. There is an antargyan, and then you burst forth with a creative idea that you have got this solution, this is the solution that we can work with, this comes. And this is then verified and elaborated and then can be applied. This is verification phase. So these are 4 phases. Let's see. Lord Buddha, he was from India, from Bodh Gaya, and he was working on a problem, how to solve the misery of the people. How can we help them in solving their miseries? He studied a lot, he talked to a lot of people, focused on their problems, learnt about their problems, but was not getting any hang of it. Then he went into meditation. What was that meditation? Meditation was this incubation phase. He was working internally. Nothing was coming out of it. And his mind was working on the problem. And suddenly he got what we call insight, illumination, enlightenment, and he learned that this is the solution of the problem. This is how we have to work. Then he framed a solution. And then he went to his friends at Varanasi, talked to them, and then they decided that this is the new solution from removing miseries from life of people. Then this should be properly elaborated and then applied to people. And this is how whole religion, Buddha religion, came about. So this process was clearly seen in his behavior. Creative process, what happens inside the mind? What is happening inside the mind? We learnt about there are 4 processes in the mind. But what is happening is Guilford was a great psychologist. He identified there are 2 processes of thinking, divergent thinking and convergent thinking, which is related to creative behavior. What is this divergent thinking? Let's see first convergent thinking. Convergent thinking is just like a convergent lens which focuses light on a particular point. That means there is only one point involved. Your whatever is the input, there will be only one output. That is, it's related to one answer questions. Standard questions which lead to one correct answer. So we have now multiple choice questions. They are basically creative thinking exercises. They have only one answers. But let's see first a few examples of convergent thinking. What is 2 plus 3? The answer will be 5. This is convergent thinking. What is your name? Answer will be a typical name. Where is the capital of India? This will have only one answer. So all these one answer questions basically lead to convergence of thinking. But what happens in divergence of thinking? In the case of divergence of thinking, you have a thought process or method where we generate new creative ideas and it comes through many possible solutions. It's not only solutions, many possible solutions. We explore possible solutions as well. This is basically open-ended questions and multiple answer questions. Let's see a few examples. If we say 7 plus 3 is 10, that is an example of convergent thinking. But when we say that how many combinations are possible of numbers which can lead us to 10? 1 plus 9, 2 plus 8, 1 plus 2 plus 7, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, they all lead to 10. And there may be many more. So there are many answers. Suppose I ask a question, who are your friends? There will be several answers. Everybody will have a different answer. Suppose I say, draw a scene you saw in the school or at home or on the way, then everybody will have a different answer and different type of answer. So this is an exercise of divergent thinking. Divergent thinking leads to imagination, and it is the base for all kinds of creativity. So whenever we want to develop creativity either at home or at school or anywhere, the most critical factor that we have to attend to is the divergent thinking. If we have prepared an environment for divergent thinking, and if a child is able to think divergently, then he is able to create something. then his developed creativity. Let's see what is creative product. Creative product means it's basically focuses on the product. What is the outcome? What in the end we are getting? And if that end, if the product fits into our evaluation criteria, then we accept the product to be creative. Let's see. When the mobile was first invented, it was a creative product because it fitted into the evaluation criteria that we are able to connect person to person even when they were mobile. But all this is time specific. At that point of time, when the mobile was first invented, it was a creative product. Today it is not, because everybody knows how to manufacture a mobile. Now I come to what ability can one find in a creative person. To be creative, one requires some intelligence, but high intelligence is no guarantee for high creativity. Why? I don't know. People used to think that highly intelligent people will be more creative, but researchers have shown otherwise. You need some intelligence, but high intelligence is no guarantee for high creativity. There is no direct correlation. So what are the real characteristics of a creative person? We have been able to identify, and scientists have been able to identify some characteristics which can be found in creative people. One is they play as a child. Child is the most imaginative person on earth. I mean, this is my interpretation. He imagines new things. He tries out new type of, he displays new type of behavior. So, in fact, playing like a child, it is often said that if you want to be creative, play like a child, behave like a child, think like a child. So, this is an important attribute of a person. I mean, let me tell you this also. If you want to be creative in the field of language, play with words. If you want to be creative in the field of mathematics, play with numbers and lines. If you want to be creative in the field of arts, play with brushes. If you want to be creative in singing, then you play with music and singing, words. So, I mean, rhythm or rhyme. So, if you want to be creative, be an imaginative player, and that too in that field. The second attribute is daydreaming. Normally people say that daydreaming is a bad thing. But unless you daydream, you won't be able to generate ideas. Unless you are able to generate ideas, you won't be creative. Similarly, when you generate ideas, you reflect in solitude. So normally a behavior of creative person is, he will be in solitude, think about the world that he is imagining, and then try to find out a solution. So solitude is an important characteristic of a creative person. Creative persons have also been found to be intuitive. They will come out with a solution without any apparent logic, but you will find that the solution works. So the creative people have some kind of intuitive behavior. And one of the most critical attribute of a creative person is that they are passionate about their activity. A singer will be passionate about his singing, a player will be passionate about his plays. I mean, he will die for it. I mean, this passionate behavior is always seen in a creative person. So unless you have passion, you cannot be a creative person. They are also found to be open to experience. They will go out, they will work with nature, they will explore new things, and this openness is a normal behavior in a creative people. Again, mindfulness. They will be mindfully occupied, not half mindful. They are totally involved, totally concentrated on the activity. So this is mindfulness is an important attribute of all creative persons. Another attribute that you can find is sensitivity. They are sensitive to different kinds of situations, and creative people are generally sensitive to, say, miseries. They will be sensitive to weaker sections. They will be sensitive to, I mean, various kinds of sensibility you will find in these creative people. And one of the best things that you will find is creative persons does not take adversity lie down, and they try to turn adversity to advantage. Gandhiji was sent to jail, and going to jail became not an adversity, but it went to his advantage. He was thrown out of a bogie. You all remember that he was thrown out of a first class bogie because he was a black. So, I mean, that adverse situation he converted to his advantage and became the one of the greatest person on earth. So, this, it is said that a creative person is free even inside jail because he turns adversity to his advantage. Jawaharlal Nehru went to jail. He wrote a book, Discovery of India, and that became so famous. So, let us come to another attribute, and this is thinking differently. Creative persons think differently. They do differently, but they think differently and obviously do differently and different from others. So, that distinction comes from thinking differently. And one of the major things that can be found in a creative person is they are not fixed, they are not rigid. They will correct even themselves. They will come out with one idea today, tomorrow they will say that this idea does not work, we will go for a new one or maybe third one. So, I mean, gradually they will keep on correcting themselves regularly or at regular intervals, and so that they are never satisfied with any product. I mean, that is a very typical creative behavior. But let us try to understand, even if a person has all these attributes, all these characteristics you find in a person, will he be creative? May not be. What it guarantees is that they will be good in producing ideas as compared to others. They will be able to produce more ideas. There are certain other factors which are important in becoming creative. That is, let us come to that, that is place or circumstances. Unless there is a circumstance, unless there is a proper place, people cannot become creative. What are those factors? One of the factors is you must have some degree of autonomy. You must have access to resources. Unless you have resources, you won't be able to display your product. Unless you have freedom to explore and experiment, you won't be able to explore and experiment and come out with the best idea. And obviously, it has been found that an environment of happiness leads to creative development. Unhappy persons are seldom creative people. Although it is true that through unhappiness, some of the greatest poetry has come out, but that is a momentary unhappiness that has come out later on. But overall, if you see, internally they are happy, even if the unhappiness is there, but internally they are happy. The surrounding may lead to some kind of unhappiness, but overall the poetry, when the poetry comes, the poetry makes them happy, you know, the release of poetry makes them happy. And if you have an overall environment of happiness, then you can find out more creative activity being done. Freedom to rational deviation from traditional norms is also seen to be one of the circumstances where people can be creative. And one of the major things that is important for developing creativity is that we must have some place where successes can be identified, encouraged and celebrated. There has to be successes. Even if I have designed a new product, nobody is able to appreciate it, nobody is able to say that this is a good product, and they encourage me, and then we are able to sell it, then the whole process goes off, then my creativity goes off. So, you must have an environment where small successes are encouraged and celebrated. Therefore, it is said that creative lifestyles are characterized by non-conforming attitudes and behavior, but it must be flexible. Flexibility is in circumstances, people have freedom to explore and experiment. This is important. And based on all this, how can we make our school or home creative? That is a crucial question that comes to our mind. Few attributes can be found out. Let's see. One of the things that we should allow at home is children should be allowed to fantasize. They should be allowed to dream. This dreaming is quite important. They should be allowed to ask questions. We should not discourage questions at home or school, however uncomfortable they may be. They should be allowed to explore and experiment. Even a smaller experiment, it's not a big experiment that they will be doing. A smaller experiment they should be allowed to do. They should be allowed to undertake small adventures. This is one of the major reasons if we allow them. Suppose I have found a very tricky situation now. In the village where we work, we have found that children climb the tree and come back very easily. But when in the urban area, if some child climbs a tree, he will be, parents will be alarmed that their child has climbed a tree, and there will be uproar. This will be a case of emergency. But unless they climb the tree, unless they take small adventures, obviously due precautions have to be taken. Unless they are allowed to undertake small adventures, they will never succeed. Similarly, children should be allowed cautiously to handle household items. If they are not allowed to operate TV, how will they learn how to operate TV? If they are not allowed to touch computer, how will they learn computer? This is quite crucial that we should allow children to use and handle household items. Similarly, they should be allowed to have logical deviation from traditional social behavior. There are certain practices, social practices. Do this, don't do this, wear this, don't wear this. These things are all coming through traditions. If a child says that this is not logically good that we should wear like this, we can have a dress differently, then you can accept it. If it is not obscene, if it does not hurt him or her, then you should accept it. If this kind of tolerance is required in the family. Similarly, children should be given free time to work on their own. They should work on their own mind, through their own way. They should do harmless activities of their own choice. This should be permitted. Unless they do some activity, they won't learn, and how can they be creative unless they learn? In this context, there is a very important learning also. When we purchase toys, what we do? We purchase good toy. It's a singing toy or moving toys, and then they will say that keep it in a box, keep it in a almirah, and see it from outside. This is singing doll. But a child does not like it. Why? They don't need expensive toys. What they need is what they can break and make. So if you can give them loosely structured toys which he or she can break and make, then they are satisfied, and that will make him or her creative. And if you give some toys and then they can be happy from outside, but they will not learn, they will not be creative. And the last 2 points are very important. If we can have small successes of children celebrated, facilitated, then the child will grow. Failures should never be ridiculed. If a child is creative, he will try out something, then he will fail. But that does not mean that we should ridicule him. If you ridicule him, then the entire spirit, entire motivation for creativity goes off. So in no case ridicule any child for the creative behavior that he has displayed or he has attempted. And wherever there is innovation, we must facilitate them. And I can definitely see there are many children who can develop many patentable ideas even in early life, but their innovation is not facilitated. Parents or teachers, they do not send it to appropriate places, and their innovative ideas remains unrecognized. So if we want to make home creative or school creative, then these simple factors will help us in making the entire environment creative, and then only we can get best out of our children. So what we learned today is what is creativity, what types of creativity are there, and what are the processes involved in creative development, and how we can make our house or school creative. So these are the basic factors that we have studied. Now in the next lecture, I will try to cover what strategies we can adopt to make our school creative and to bring out best from our children in schools. So thank you very much.